the Hangman, one of the dopest names in the game. His real name, Daniel Hooker, or some people call him Dan Hooker. He is a 27-year-old featherweight that fights in the UFC, but his next fight will be in the lightweight division. He holds a record of 13-7. He has fought in the UFC around 6 times now, and this is his seventh fight. In the next fight, he will be facing Ross Pearson, who is, one of the well-known British fighters. He's been in wars with a lot of guys, a lot of known guys. And Dan, he comes on the podcast to talk about that fight, about Ross Pearson, about the opportunity that he's going to get. And at UFC Fight Night 110, Derek Lewis versus Mark Hunt, which is a big opportunity for him because he will be on the main card of such a big main event, and a lot of eyes will be on there. So a lot of eyes will be on him as he steps out and faces a fighter like Ross Pearson. If he goes in there, destroys him, it's a huge, huge win for him, and kind of catapults him into that lightweight division, and maybe getting a fight with a top 15 guy or even a top 10 guy. Who knows? On the podcast, he talks about training in New Zealand for this whole camp at City Kickboxing and the benefits of that. Also, he goes into talking about sponsorships and how Reebok has been beneficial for him and the other sponsorship opportunities that he has gotten since joining the UFC. He delves into social media and how he grew his social media and how he grew his following and how that has helped him. And it's not just going to help him in his fighting career, but also after he's done fighting, he sees the opportunities of that and how he embraces that. Because a lot of fighters out there, they're not embracing the social media. They need to be out there. And the more eyes that are on you, especially if you're a fighter or any athlete, because fighters are athletes, right? What they make money on is people being interested in them. So social media is very important, and he knows how to work that to his advantage. He also gets into talking about the Ultimate Fighter that's going on right now and how he feels about that season because he trained before at Elevation Fight Team for a bit, and he knows a lot of those coaches. He knows TJ Dillashaw, and he's been around them, so he kind of gives good insight of what he thinks of what's going on the show. Other than that, there's much more we talk about in this, I guess, in this interview, but podcast at the same time. Um, I'm sorry for the people that are listening. The reason why, or if you're watching, the reason why is because in the beginning of the podcast, I was not recording for the first maybe minute or so. And that's why the podcast starts mid sentence while Dan is answering a question. My apologies to Dan because I know that, he set time aside to talk to me. So other than that, I think the rest of the podcast is pretty decent. So check that shit out, homie.
Everything together and running with the kind of the structure and system that we've had in place for like the last few years and we've developed, and I'm very confident in my team and the training that I've been doing.
All right, are you just with one team right now in New Zealand, or are you in many different places? Are you going around and getting coaching from many different kind of guys, or what's going on with that?
No, so I have one head coach, Eugene Bierman, and I'm training with the team at City Kickboxing. So it's in central Auckland. It's like 3 minutes down the road from the arena we'll be fighting in. So it's really is home soil. Like, you can't get any closer.
Do you drive by? You know, like since it's so close, the
Yeah,
arena.
no, I'm used to seeing it, man.
Uh,
I drive down those roads like it's going to be a deja vu moment, next week for the weigh-ins and the fight. I've run it and played that moment through so many times in my head. It kind of just hits you like a deja vu moment.
yeah. I see that in at City Kickboxing, you guys have a lot of elite strikers over there, you know, training. So can you talk about, the guys that you train with and, what you guys are doing?
Yeah, like real solid team. My team, Israel Adesanya, he just fought for a glory title. He keeps you on your toes, man. That guy's quick. He's learned. He's so smart and so sharp when it comes to the game. So I'm constantly picking up things from that guy. Uh, Blood Diamond. Look, I could name forever the kickboxers, and with the endless stream of titles, Oceania titles, world championships. Uh, we've been at this for a long time down in New Zealand, and no one's really kind of seen us on the world stage. You see the guys like Mark Hunt coming through, but there's such a rich history in New Zealand of strikers, that I think that there's so much talent down here that's yet to be discovered, and it's kind of peeking its head through now. I think in the next few years, New Zealand mixed martial arts will be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, a few weeks back, I was talking to Ev Ting, and he was talking
Yes.
about how a lot of the fighters they would kind of even though they come from different camps, they would kind of gather together once in a while and train because, like you said, the level has become so high that you guys kind of need to group together and train and develop your skills together. So, have you been involved in that, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, it was like that for a few years. We'd kind of come from our gyms a couple times a week and just train together. But as time has progressed, we've all kind of realizing it's just moved towards a solid team foundation where guys aren't just coming and going from different gyms. We realize where that high quality coaching is, and we're the consistent training partners. Training with the best guy in the world once a month, or training with you know guy with a mixed record every single day. I'm going to take that guy who shows up at the gym 3 times a day, 6 days a week, over the best guy in the world once a month, every time. So we've gravitated together, and it's turning into a solid team. So it's not this mix mash bunch of guys that show up and train together now and then. It's kind of like a Team New Zealand foundation with the best guys consistently showing up 6, 7 days a week, 2, 3 times a day. So it's that consistency you really need to get like proper improvements in your game.
So is that kind of like one of the reasons why you kind of stayed at home this time and not, because you've been at other camps before for a few of your fights. So is that
Yeah,
the reason why you stayed there?
yeah. I've been moving around a long time. I just had to know, man. I just had to know. Training back in New Zealand, I'd always be kind of looking over the fence into the neighbor's backyard, and then, oh, what are they doing over there? If they got any kind of secrets. Coming from such a small country, of course you're gonna, have that inquisitive nature, looking over the fence, seeing if they're gonna be doing anything different or if there's anything better. So I moved around the world, trained in Thailand for 12 months, trained in Denver for 6 months, like experienced all these different camps, and it gave me a lot of confidence in, that there's no magic bullet in this game. It's hard work, consistency, and having just an open mind to develop your game within yourself. So it was kind of a very long-winded trip to figure out what I already knew. I'm kind of like a facts guy, so I had to see it ironclad for
Mhm.
myself. I had to go to these places and see it for myself. There's guys like Israel Adesanya, who hasn't trained internationally. He hasn't spent time overseas. He just has that confidence from within, and he knows within himself that he's already getting the best training in the world. He can kind of just pull it out of his ass. I'm more of a facts guy, so I had to go and see it for myself.
Yeah, Israel. I watched his title fight. That was he is legit as they come from anywhere around the world. So training with him, it must be pretty crazy because he's such a long guy.
Yeah,
Compared to other guys.
he's just so smart. There's of course there's the physical attributes, but I think a lot of people brush off his fight IQ. You know,
Mm.
I think that's what the top 2 inches is what separates that guy from the rest of the pack. And
Mm.
just with his style, he's going to be in this game like a very long time. He doesn't take a lot of damage. He doesn't take a lot of damage in training. He's a smart guy in the ring. He's crafty. He's always getting better. He's not one of these guys that takes a shot to give a shot. You know, he goes out there and looks to outclass guys. He does it. He tries it in the gym as well. So he's a smart guy, and he'll be around for a very long time. And we should see him in the UFC early next year, I think.
What do you think about them signing Gokhan Saki? He only has one fight. He lost
Yeah,
MMA.
I was stoked about it. To be honest, I'm a Saki fan from a while, man. I've been following Saki for a long time. I love his crisp hands, man. The speed on that guy, just the subtleties in his footwork. I think he's a very, very classy fighter. Then I went and told my coach, and my coach just thinks he's going to get smashed. So it's it kind of dampen my spirits. But no, I'm excited for it. Like I just hope he's been doing the things he needs to do to avoid the grappling exchanges. Because if they give him a striker, if they give him a striker, that guy's gonna turn into a wrestler pretty quick, man.
Definitely, definitely. I don't think they're gonna put him in there with a wrestler. I don't think they're gonna put him in there with a grappler. I think there's gonna be a straight up stand up war and kind of build him up a little bit.
Yeah, but you give him a striker, and that striker's gonna take him down. No one in the UFC is there because they're an idiot, you know.
Yeah, true, true, true. Um, I know that you fought 6 times, right, in the UFC so far, and your record is 500, right? And they haven't really given you any easy fights. If you look back at your, the past fights. So, um, when you perform, when I look at, your go back and look at your fights. When you perform, you finish all your fights. Like it's just it's pretty amazing. But then when you're not, I don't know if you're not at your like top level of yourself at that night, but it's not like the guy never really dominates you. You know what I mean? So can you kind of explain that, like like your last fight? You looked ready. You looked like you look loose. Everything the hype was there, and then you went in and it kind of what happened there? Do you think?
Yeah, obviously I've gone back and I've watched those fights and I've reviewed the training and just all I can do is make improvements and take the lessons that I've learned from those fights and kind of move on. I could sit here and you know pick apart my career with you,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's just gonna sound like excuses. It's just gonna sound like this injury, that wait.
Mm.
It's just bullshit at the end of the day. It's just excuses at the end of the day. All you can do is take it on the chin as a loss and learn and improve from it and develop and go out there and improve every time and just prove that you're a better quality fighter than that.
Like everybody always says, all the fighters always say, like, my next fight is my biggest fight. Of course it is. It's always is for everybody, right? But your next fight is against a guy that has been around for so long and he's beaten some of the top guys. And you're moving up a weight class, but you're not really moving up a weight class because you were a lightweight before you went into the UFC, correct?
Yep. No, I've started my career at lightweight for most of my fights leading in. UFC said, "Hey, can you make 145?" I made it, and then I kept making it.
So you didn't like going down there.
When maybe I shouldn't have.
Uh,
I I just kind of shut up and take it. And then if I kind of set my mind to something, like I had convinced myself that, you know, this was my division, and then I'd convince myself, you know, and once I convince myself of something and I get like this mental thing where I can do it, my mind makes it easy, you know, where it's not so easy. When I started moving back up to lightweight and started eating and started putting some more size onto my frame back to, you know, a more natural frame, and I just noticed, you know, it took me like a week and a half, 2 weeks of kind of growing
Mm.
back into my natural frame, and I just knew, you know, I just knew that I felt the improvements within 1.5, 2 weeks of you know, that cut to 45 had been doing to my body. I know, regardless of this next fight, success or failure, that lightweight is my division. You know, I'll say it to you right now. I'm never going back to 45. So, what does that tell you? You know?
Yeah, you see other guys moving up to lightweight too that were cutting down to featherweight, such as like Dustin Poirier, and their performance has gotten a lot better. It seems like they're they have a lot more power, you know, in their strikes, and you know, it's pretty amazing. I think it's the best thing for anybody to just go back to their, you know, natural weight and not push themselves too much to kind of cut you know, too much. Because do you think that you know, TJ Dillashaw, right? They're talking about that he wants to cut down to flyweight. Do you think
Mm.
that's a good idea? Because you've been around him and you've seen him,
Yeah.
right, in person. So what do you think about
Yeah, he doesn't cut like too much weight to make bantamweight, but he's a very like solid guy. He's a very naturally built guy. He's a strong guy for bantam, uh, and I truly believe he could be, you know, a dominant champion at bantam. That guy's just drawn to the challenge. You
that?
know, there's this guy a weight division below about to be the greatest of all time, you know, and that greatest of all time is only a few kilos away. So that guy just loves the challenge. So he's just getting drawn down there for a fist fight. Uh, do I think it's a good thing, good move? I can't say, you know, doing that to your body is like that great for your longevity. You know, jumping up and down a weight class is not the easiest thing in the world.
Have you been watching The Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah, man, this season's good. I
Yeah,
like
it
this season.
is. It is good. What do you think about you know, the drama that like what is his name? Garbrandt. Him just
Yeah,
wanted to fight everybody all the time. It's just doesn't it get old, you know,
yeah, it
when you're
does,
watching
man.
it?
Yeah, I think it does get old. You know, I think if anything, you know, he's just making TJ look good. Like TJ looks sharp. His coaching looked amazing. You know, he's like that in the gym. Like he's a very inquisitive guy in the gym. A coach would be taking class, and he's just asking questions, man. The best guys I've ever trained with, you know, the best fighters in the world that I've ever, you know, been in the same room with, been to a seminar with, just been around. They just ask questions. There's just a guy there, you know, trying to show a move, and they're just picking his brain, picking his brain, picking his brain. For every one move, they got 10 questions, and TJ's just a guy like that. He's just constantly asking questions, learning, growing, developing. Always wants to know more, and so that comes through when you see him coach. You know, he's very meticulous. He knows how to get these guys to click. So he's, man. I'm just enjoying watching him on that show, showing his class. You know, Garbrandt keeps confronting him. They keep trying to instigate things, and he's just brushing it off. You know, kind of laughing it off.
Yeah, I think that this show is making him look a lot better and showing that all those rumors, you know, of him like being a snake and, you know,
Yeah,
things like that, it kind of shows because, you know, most people don't really know what's going on. You know, they just see what's on the news. But if you watch the show, you think like, I don't, it makes you think like, that doesn't sound like he's a snake. He doesn't seem like a snake. And his team is winning and he's coaching very well, like you said.
yeah.
So,
Well, you look at the team. It's the team that he left for, you know, and then he's got the coaches he went to be with as he's brought in as his coaches, and you can see the results in a show. I know it's not respective of a fighter's career or the teams or anything like that. But you can see like the quality of coaching, which people are saying he left for the money. He kind of misrepresented himself by saying, the money's better over there. Maybe because he just didn't want to come out and say, the team's better, or the coaches are better, or I get more attention, or these guys know more than you guys. So maybe he didn't want to, hurt Uriah and those guys' feelings by just saying, look, you're not like the best coaches in the world that I could have around me to be world champion. So I think people are just now seeing that in the show, and they can kind of see that and sense that and pick that up for themselves.
Talking about TV, I just recently watched an advertisement with you and the movie King Arthur. How did that come about?
So I have a PR manager here in New Zealand, John, and he's been contacting companies for me, and Roadshow Entertainment got back to me, PR company over here got back to me, and we put this thing together where I cut a little promo and they cut it into the trailer for the new King Arthur film. It's that's massive for me. I think that's the first, definitely the first New Zealand mixed martial artist in part of like a mainstream production like that. Even internationally, you don't see it that often. The ties being that close. So for me, it's a massive step towards mixed martial arts being accepted down here as a complete kind of mainstream sport, which is just a huge step.
If you look at it, in the rankings of sports, MMA in New Zealand, what would you think it would be ranked?
MMA is a funny game, man. Viewership wise, you're gonna see this like crazy amount of numbers, and then like competitive wise, I think people show up to the gym and they just realize this is just too much work. Like guys will get to the gym and they're not fit for any of these sports, or they try a boxing class and they kind of get overwhelmed. I contacted a bunch of gyms when I got back here into New Zealand, because with all my knowledge, I like to share it, and I like to teach others. And I just, coaching mixed martial arts is just as much of a passion for me as competing mixed martial arts. So I, contacted gyms and got a few responses, and you're trying to set up MMA training for these guys and teaching and learning, and that response is not there. But you have a big UFC event, and it sells out 10,000 people, but you can't get a handful of people to commit to being MMA fighters. So it's competition wise, and then viewership wise, the sport viewership wise is mainstream, man. But otherwise, I think the aspects of mixed martial arts, like jiu-jitsu, is going ridiculously crazy in New Zealand. Kickboxing, always massive, but boxing's picking back up. So I think combat sports as a whole benefits from this UFC going mainstream.
Oh, that's good. Like I think those other sports kind of blowing up will eventually, let MMA become much larger in any country. Even like in even in Asian countries, it's the same thing. It's like MMA is not huge, like when you go to gyms, but if you go to like a jiu-jitsu gym or a boxing or a Muay Thai, there's so many people learning, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, but you're always gonna need those mixed martial arts to craft a successful MMA fighter. People a true mixed martial artist. It's defined by me as being a master of the arts. To me, you have mastered kickboxing, you have mastered boxing, you have mastered wrestling, you have mastered jiu-jitsu. Some people today kind of get misunderstand it, and they kind of shit at all of them, but they put them all together, and they go to a jiu-jitsu class and get their ass kicked, and they're like, oh, well, if this was a kickboxing class, or they go to a kickboxing class and get their ass kicked, and oh man, if we're rolling and doing jujitsu, I'd beat your ass. So they kind of suck at everything and think they're an MMA fighter. I think an MMA fighter is a master of the arts, and they appreciate each and every art for what it is.
So, with like your team, right? So you're saying that you kind of like when you went back, you contact some gyms. So do you eventually in the future want to start your own team in New Zealand, or what are your plans for that?
Man, that'll just be a natural progression of a life dedicated to martial arts and mixed martial arts. I've got a few fighters that I train now, and you know uh, young fighters that I train now, and it's really like quality over quantity to me. If you train with me, you gotta. There's one thing: you're not a quitter. If you're, even if I'm taking you for a PT and you're paying me, you're paying me for to be pushed, and you're paying me. I'm gonna train everyone like they're training for a world championship. I don't take it easy on any of these people. If you train with me, you're not gonna be a quitter, and if you stick with me long enough, I'll make you achieve anything you want to achieve.
Yeah, I think that is the number one key is, motivation. A lot of people don't have that motivation, and if you can pump some motivation to somebody, they could accomplish a lot of things that they probably thought they never could have. So
Yeah.
it's very important, right? Um, talking about another teammate of yours, Kai. Like you guys been pumping him up a lot. I've seen you guys online, and he's been fighting so much. Why do you think he can't get on the card?
I don't know, man. You have to talk to the UFC matchmakers on that one. Kind of it draws a blank with me. It's kind of a perfect setting and a perfect scenario for that guy to be signed. I think he's one of the most exciting flyweights on the planet. Like, what other flyweights consistently put guys to sleep like that? I'd like to see him get in there and do it at a high level. But to me, it's just a matter of time for that guy. Uh, his time will come. He just has to stay patient, man. Stay patient. His time will come. The skill there, everything is there. A big part of this sport is just timing and opportunity. Timing and opportunity in this sport are 90% of the game. If you get a little streak together, 4 or 5 fights, some impressive 4 or 5 fights, you can change your life in this sport.
Yeah, you're right. It's timing and opportunity because you get a little 4 or 5 win streak and they have a perfect setting for you to kind of go in and fight this certain guy and they'll sign you, right? But then if you're not in that perfect setting, they don't even really look at it, you as a fighter. So it kind of sucks
Anything
for some guys.
to get a shot in the UFC, or once you're in the UFC, it can only take like a small matter of time. You look at guys like Matt Brown. He went on that streak there for a bit, 4 or 5 fights, putting guys away, and he's kind of built himself as this fan following where people just love that guy and follow that guy for what he's done. Cub Swanson's recently has just turned his career around. For a long time he was kind of considered that guy that got slept by Jose Aldo, and now people have forgotten about that. And he's a main eventer now, and he's changing his life. He's painting himself back up there and reinventing himself. A big part of this sport is hanging in there and being patient enough and committed enough that when your time comes that you're ready for it.
Yeah, to me, Michael Bisping is the prime example of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
thing right there is continuing and continuing and continuing, picking yourself back up, and then that perfect time it comes, and now he's the
Time,
world champ.
opportunity, man.
Yeah, like that's I respect him so much for that to become because I never thought he would become a world champ, to be honest with you. But then when he did become the world champ, it was just like you got to believe, that you can accomplish anything in fighting if you just push yourself and push forward. So it's Yeah, the MMA world, it's not the kindest world, you could be in, right? Um,
Uh, I
also
wouldn't
let
have
yeah,
I
what's
wouldn't
up?
have it any other way.
Yeah, of course, you got to work for what you get, right?
Yeah, man.
Um, going to, your fight, right? So with Pearson, how did they come with you with Pearson? Like, why Pearson, do you think?
Man, I don't know. It's a good fight. It makes sense. I think just Pearson wanted on the Auckland card. I'm moving up to lightweight. The fight makes sense. Um, he's a big name. This is my hometown. Uh, it makes sense to me. I actually had like an inkling that they were going to come with that name, and just so happens that's the name that popped up on my email. So I'm happy to oblige. It's an honor to fight Ross. I've been following Ross since he was on the Ultimate Fighter. I followed that season of the Ultimate Fighter, which he absolutely wrecked shop, and he's been competing in the UFC ever since at the highest level. He's actually a guy I never thought that I would get the opportunity to fight. He's been around for so long that he was probably in the UFC before I started fighting. So
Mm.
it's a ridiculous opportunity to me.
Um, what do you think of his like skill set now compared to, before when you first started watching him?
Man, he's still an amazing fighter. Like even you look at his last fights, decision, Jorge Masvidal. There was the Will Brooks fight, which I thought he won. The Will Brooks fight, I've watched that over, studying film, and I thought he won that fight. So you're looking at these guys. Jorge Masvidal, he took that at welterweight. Uh, Will Brooks, like these are the best guys in the world, and he's still not only hanging in there with them, like he's very competitive. So I'm taking nothing for granted with Ross. Uh, he's a complete veteran, and I'm going to have to be on my absolute A game if I want success that night.
For sure. Before I let you go, I want to talk about social media because you're very active on social media. Do you have someone working for you? Because it seems like
Uh,
you're very active. Like I see you on there a lot. Like you have your own page, and then you're pumping out a lot of material. So, are you doing it yourself?
yeah, that's kind of all me. Yeah, I don't know. There's no secret to it. It's it's just time, and I just don't really overthink things when it comes to social media. I just share with what's going on. If I see something cool, I'll share that too. I don't put too much thought into it. Of course, you like pick up things over time. Like, oh, if I post things in the morning, people will like them. Like, it's not complete rocket science when it comes to social media. Just keep at it, and it just grows naturally.
How important is it for a fighter to be active on social media? Because most fighters are not active. So for you, you have a huge following on social
Yeah.
media. So
Um, I think it depends what you want to do with the sport. Uh, if you want to make things happen, if there's a lot of fighters out there, kind of saying that they deserve more, or the UFC's not paying them enough for sitting on their ass at home and training and being a UFC fighter. Uh, Being in the UFC allows you so many opportunities, but you have to go out there and make the most of those opportunities when it comes to outside sponsorship, or uh, deals with PR companies, or if you're doing something like a two-way relationship with a sponsor who wants to give you something, you have to earn that, and you have to put the time into it, and they have to have a benefit in it. It's a two-way relationship. You're giving them something. You're giving them a service for their product. It's never it's never going to work if you're just sitting on your ass and waiting for people to give you handouts. Um, and plus, I'm thinking post career as well. I think social media is a big part of future advertisement, and it'll be a big part of my own gym or my own coaching. It's just allowed me and opened the doors to so many more opportunities that wouldn't be available to me if I didn't put the time into social media. So it took a long time, but it paid off at the end of the day.
For sure, it's still growing. So, even though you do have a large following, it's still growing, and it can never stop, in my opinion. If you continue at, pumping yourself up and sharing videos or whatever, it doesn't even really have to be yourself. It could be other people that you want to support. What do you think about Kat Zagano? She put up a picture, right, of the Reebok voucher, like one-time lifetime 50% off Reebok gear. What do you think
Nah,
about
they've
handing that out to the fighters?
they've given that to us before, and I did the exact same thing. I think I might have posted it up too. I was thinking, what in the hell? I was thinking, this is not a sponsorship, but I understand. It's they gave them some gear, and they threw in the voucher as just part of the gear. I am, for one, I'm the wrong guy to talk about for complaining about the Reebok sponsorship. If you're one of these bigger name American guys who was getting money hand over fist before Reebok came in, then more to you, complain away. But I'm from little old New Zealand, and there was no one handing out cash. For my first 3 UFC fights, I didn't even have I had a banner with my gym on it. I had shorts with my gym on it, black shorts, and they had my gym's name on it, and that was it. And that's all I could get, and it's not through a lack of trying. I was out there myself contacting sponsors, I'd go through and watch the UFC and write down all the sponsors on everyone's shorts, and I would email those companies. And, the best thing I got was Hayabusa. They emailed me back and they said, we'll give you some free shorts if you wear them for your fight. I got a free pair of shorts, you can kiss my ass, and I bought my own shorts. And now with the Reebok deal, I'm the wrong guy because it's money for nothing for me.
Do you think that, of course, for the younger guys or the up and coming guys, the Reebok deal is good, right? But then once you build your name, do you think it's negative for the fighters now? Like you said, some fighters, they're making, hand over fist with sponsorship. So for you like we were talking about earlier about your social media, because that helps with sponsorships, right? So
Yep.
if you were able to get more sponsorships on top of Reebok, do you think that you could do it right now?
Yeah, definitely. If you're a big name and you paint yourself in that position, and you have people wanting to help you out, then you have so many more avenues as a UFC fighter that you can promote things. It's not like the UFC says, hey, if someone wants to sponsor you, no one else can sponsor you. It's purely just for the fight. You're not holding out the shoot. Like, I'm not worried about getting a banner printed or fight shorts with a bunch of different crappy brands I've never heard of written all over my shorts, or written on my banner fight night, and I'm getting these things done off. To me, it's just a pain in the ass. The fight's the fight. Reebok's going to pay you for the fight, and then outside of that, it's fair game. You can promote yourself as a UFC fighter and receive all the opportunities in the world. And the way I'm seeing it is these opportunities are nothing but growing. They're nothing but growing, and there's more and more opportunities. So I think as the sport develops even more, these will just get bigger. The sport has not been around very long at all, and we're already, they're comparing UFC paychecks to NBA paychecks or NFL paychecks. But the sport is in an infancy, and from where I'm sitting, it's come so far in such a small space of time. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm just going to develop myself with it, develop my name with it, and my support team with it, and make the most of the opportunities that the UFC has afforded me. So people are saying, they're scared to say anything about the UFC, or they're scared to talk shit. It's not talking shit. It's just making the most of the opportunities that I have. Complaining about anything doesn't change a damn thing. Getting out there and doing something and making a living for yourself, that's what progresses you in the sport.
Um, Now that you have, grown into having such a following in New Zealand, are you doing like other things like such as, you just did the King Arthur thing, but do you do like TV, or do you kind of do post or pre-fight, like analysis and stuff like that? Are you doing those things?
Uh, like, so there's you know, bar appearances. I watch the UFC with my fans and my supporters, my friends and family down at a bar, and they help me out. I might have a deal with a car company here coming up. Might have that in place for fight week. Um, yeah, I coach at a few places. I take PTs. Like I'm out here grinding. That's not making That's not making a living off fighting in the UFC, but that's developing the sport and making money from being a UFC fighter, and making money from mixed martial arts as a whole, and any avenue that opens up to me, I'm looking at to pursue. I got a family to feed, so I got to get off my ass and get out there, man.
Yeah, I respect the grind because, some fighters, they're just out there and they're just saying like, I'm not fighting for the money, and I'm fighting because I want to be the best or whatever. And at the end of the day, you need money. You know, if you could get money, you better go get that money, right? Because if it's not gonna be there forever, so you
Yeah,
gotta,
it's so many more challenges. I was doing some commentating as well. Big show in New Zealand, probably the biggest kickboxing show. King of the Ring was here. They were looking for a MMA commentator. And I commentated the MMA and kickboxing on that show. So there's so many opportunities, and it's not like I did that for the money. I did that for the challenge. That gets you out of your comfort zone. You're out there, and it's developing the sport, and it really does. There's no coincidence that guys like DC, guys like Bisbing, guys like Dominic Cruz uh, are doing so well in the sport. The commentating and being around the sport, and just mentally thinking about the sport 24/7 helps you develop as a fighter and grow as a fighter.
oh, definitely. Like all those guys you just mentioned, they're all champions.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, and it must be
It, it
something to
can't
that.
it can't be a pure coincidence.
Exactly, right? So, yeah. Do you make predictions? What do you think is gonna happen in your fight?
In my fight, ah, it's such a. I'm just thinking it's gonna be a battle, man. I watched tape on Ross, and that guy is going nowhere. He's coming forward, and he's looking to throw, and he can grapple, and he can wrestle, and he's well rounded everywhere. So I'm just gonna have to perform at my best to kind of get the result. And I put in the work in the gym to prepare for the toughest fight of my life. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for now that I've trained so hard. I just hope that it's the toughest fight of my life, which is what I'm expecting. And the result will be the result, man. Win or loss, I did everything. I have no excuses for this fight, win or lose.
Was this the longest camp you've ever had?
No, so I'm always it's funny, like I'm always training. Like regardless of fight, I'm one of those guys that regardless of whether I have a fight or not, like I'm training twice a day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. Like I just enjoy training. I just am always in the gym. I'll fight and I'll be there Monday morning. Like I just enjoy training. So we didn't really start, quotations camp until 8 weeks out,
Mm.
because I've done those long camps, 12 weeks, 13 weeks, 14 weeks, and
Oh,
you kind of just burn yourself out. So it was my coach's decision, and he trimmed it down and didn't have me really, you know, committing to fight camp, because it is draining when you start, putting that as soon as you start calling it camp, it becomes like this kind of big thing. And it's
Sure.
like this big serious thing from training. So I guess fight camp has been 8 weeks, but I come into fight camp like fit, and probably ready to fight 8 weeks out. So I'm fit as hell right now. He's been kicking my ass in the gym and pushing me every day. So it's been a grind, but it'll pay off fight night.
So basically there's no weight cut. You're just like perfect weight. Are you gonna cut weight, or is it just you're
Great, man.
just there?
Of course I'm cutting weight. Man, I have to cut weight to make welterweight.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right.
man.
All right, well, thank you for your time, man. I know you're in the middle of camp. It's almost time. It's almost go time. So mentally, you're probably, you're. It's like you're in one lane basically. So, thanks for kind of jumping out the lane and giving us a little conversation over here.
No worries, man. Anytime.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for that.